or in a hotel?
Hotel.
Oh, there we go.
Good morning. It is the first Friday of 2024, and this is the Friday Grief Chat. I'm Jill.
I'm Deb.
Welcome for those of you watching live, and for those of you who watch later, and those of you who listen later. It's nice to have you here.
Oh, it is. And, a lot of people, in fact, one person wrote me yesterday, oh, I thought this other thing that you're doing was just like Friday Grief Chat, and I could just watch it later or tune in or something. And I go, oh, no, it's not. I'm so sorry. I'll send you a link next time. And so anyway, we're getting known in other circles.
That's so nice to hear. I love that.
We are. And more people have been tuning in, and it's sort of exciting. I mean, we're just doing our thing. We're not doing an extraordinary amount of marketing. We do have our podcast. And Jill, if you don't mind, at some point in today, maybe you can put down in the comments what our podcast is.
I'm going to text Kiri, our assistant, and let her put it up for us as we are talking.
Yeah, that would be so great.
I'm doing it now.
And I want to say Happy New Year, but I'm so uncomfortable with saying Happy New Year because it's like, you need to be happy, but we don't really bank on that. So welcome to a new year. This will be Jill's and my 4th year of putting this show and podcast together. We really hope over the years that you have found a couple of us that have no expectations about the way your grief or the way you handle death or the way you express yourself. There's no judgment here because you're talking to 2 of the cutest weirdos I know.
Grief weirdos. Let's clarify that.
We're grief weirdos. Yes.
Right.
And just in case you're interested in hanging out with other people like us, there is a conference coming up in June. And it is called the International Grief and
Bereavement Conference.
Yes. And Jill's probably looking something up right now, and so she'll be able to copy and paste that into the comments. You can get CEs, right?
Yes.
They don't always correspond with ADEC, which is the Association for Death Education and Counseling, but a lot of nurses, a lot of social workers, doctors, etc., can get these continuing education credits right here, right now, through that particular conference in June. And in the past, Jill and I have spoken. This year, we both decided not to speak, maybe just to help and volunteer.
It's a year off.
A year off, yeah.
A year off. We're going to enjoy people and sit at the table and greet people and things.
Yeah. And so we know where the best ice cream is. So maybe some of you would like to come to the conference and check it out. It's through the University of
Wisconsin.
Yeah, La Crosse. And you'll see it on their website also. I just want to sort of introduce here, Jill and I, we've known each other for all these years, and many of you know that Jill's mom died last June. And as of yesterday, it's been 7 months, cleaned out the house. And she has, they talk about, I'm not a big fan of this, but they talk about the tasks of grief or the tasks of mourning. Let me be perfectly clear. The tasks are meeting up with the bank. The tasks are meeting up with real estate. The tasks are, oh my God, how can I deal with one more idiot? Those are your main tasks. And I think we should really talk about that.
Oh, yeah, no kidding. And make sure you got everything in order.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Yes.
even if you do, probate is still a
Probate.
thing if you
It
don't have
is.
a trust. And if you have a trust, you can still end up in probate if family
Yes.
doesn't get along.
Oh,
And
God,
and
yes.
then the IRS needs to have a chat with you, and then you have to have an EIN to become an employee of the person who died.
That's right.
And there's just a myriad of how much fun can one have while trying to
Yes.
also manage real life and also manage trying to grieve. It's a whole heck of a lot.
It, you know, I want to say that we were very lucky that in between morphine, that a lawyer came in and changed the will with my mom so she would be alert to even X or sign her name and say, I agree or disagree, so that things went shorter. But they don't really go shorter. I want to say in most cases, most, it takes anywhere from 6 months to 18 months
That's
to
exactly right.
undo everything. So if you're thinking, oh, this is a piece of cake, you're wrong. This
And I
is
just
like,
gotta say, I've had two spouses die. I've
right.
lost a dad. I've lost multiple in-law parents. But when it's the last parent and the house has to be cleared, it's, when your spouse dies, you still have where you live, or even if you move, their stuff can go with. But when it's the parent and the house has to go, or a
Mhm.
sibling and they're single and the house has to go, or an adult child dies and you're the one responsible, that adds a huge extra layer of moving
That's-
cartons and tape and sorting and court,
And
right?
court.
And
That's
I'm
right.
I'm very fortunate. My sisters and I have gotten along stupendously, and they wrote
Mhm.
letters to the court and said, just whatever Jill says goes, and we're gonna all get along. But even still, there's a lot of court.
You know, and it also depends what state, or
Yes.
people listen to us in other countries. So it also depends on what your country says. It's all
Mhm.
different. And, Jill has lived in California, and like she said, she's had two spouses die, both her parents, and, and her spouse's family members have died. So she's worked around this. Imagine you haven't. So who do you talk to? What can you do? Well, you can look up things online, of course, Google everything, but you got to go to a lawyer at some point and follow what the bank says. And
And sometimes the bank doesn't know what they're doing.
that's
There's been
Jill had
so
that.
many twists. Oh my God, so many twists. Our local credit union put a new wife on my dad's account.
Yes.
And my mom had figured that out, but couldn't remember to tell me because of dementia. And they saw she had dementia. So they just kind of went, yeah, whatever. You don't know what you're talking about. It
Right.
was the wrong wife. And I had to untangle that, which violated multiple federal laws, by the way. They shouldn't ought have done that. But yeah.
And although, at least with uh, Jill and my knowledge, you never know. We try to prepare families to
Yes.
always tell the truth to your adult children, or even your older teens. And when I say the truth, you say how that person died. Because if you think you're protecting them, you're not. Because once they get the death certificates,
it's all there.
It's all there. And now you're the liar and they hate you.
Or even if it's way back and someone finds those death certificates while they're sorting.
That's right.
Oh, holy heck. There's a surprise or two right there.
That's right. So being honest at the time of death, and as you're uncovering, which you will, family secrets or just things you wish you didn't know about. Not to give too much away, I was helping someone go through the house. So you look for money, depending on how old they are, right, Jill?
Right.
You got to look where they squirreled all the money away. And a lot of times it's in pillowcases, it's in the closet, it's in chest of drawers.
In the sweater pocket in the closet.
That's right. That's right.
Or in the shoes.
Or in the shoes, or in a coffee can in the back of the closet.
Oh my gosh, I've gone through so many.
I know. And then I found this person's sex toys under the bed. So just saying.
Always have a designated remover person for stuff you don't want the family to find. And they get first right to the keys.
Yes. Such as not just someone's sex toys, but their journals.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
And what do they want done with the journals? If you've got journals, make sure you've told someone.
That's right. Do you have a burning escape plan? Or should I say, if you're not saving those journals, if you're not feeling attached to those journals, burn them.
Burn them.
Or you can throw them away. I actually said, there's no identifying things in here. I'm going to throw them away. I'm going to rip out a couple pages that I need for humor down the road. And I threw them away. And I said, I know it's adding to a landfill, and maybe somebody will find something they need. Yeah, to have the documents, to gain access to the bank accounts. Thanks, Steve.
Yep. You got to have everything in order. And please put the names on the pictures. Oh my goodness, put the names on the pictures. And not just the first name, last name, date, who everybody is, where it was taken.
Exactly.
We do have identification online now where you can run things, but that does take a lot of energy. Make it easier on the rest of the family.
So, Jill, I want to ask you two questions.
Yes, ma'am.
How do you feel? We've given practical advice here for the first 15 minutes. How do you feel having gone through this process? What are the feelings and emotions that hit you through this process? That's the first question. And then I'm going to ask specifically, that was your last parent.
Yes.
And how did you, can you take us through some of those emotions also?
I can. And let me start with the second one, because almost the moment my mom died, it was this instant realization that in our branch of the family, it was now just me with my sisters. And I'd already told my older sister, Anne, when mom goes, you're the matriarch. And she'd already said 2 weeks before, oh, hell no, you are. You're the one who organizes. I'm going to be in Chicago. You're it. And they appointed you. So it's not by birth order anymore in this family. You're it. And so there was that. We were watching her being removed by the mortuary and gathered on the front porch. And it was like literally watching a layer of family just being whisked away. And that was a very unique feeling. Um, and when I called Anne, because Anne wasn't present when Mom died, she'd spent a long time. She needed to go home because of health issues. Um, I couldn't even form words. I picked up the phone. I called her. She answered. All I could do was sob. She said, I understand. And we hung up, and that was the end of that conversation. So there's a point for folks. You don't have to have words to say. You just got to let them know what happened if it's somebody who needs to know right then. Right. Um, but in terms of the whole process, it has been sad, intensely sad at times. It has been huge relief at times. It's been frustrating as all get out to cope with all of the fiduciary, crazy, just the ticky tack stuff that's required by the state. The person at the probate court who wouldn't process paperwork because, as she emailed me, it's not my job to remove paper clips. Like it's that kind of stuff. There's when I finally got to the tail end of everything, the sorting, the mail, I've probably mailed 25 boxes of stuff out. And I've learned to have fun with that. I've added that sense of humor to that part. So I'm finding the precious things that need to go to my sister in Chicago. And then she gets the negligee that my dad bought my mom, that my mom thought was scandalous and would never wear. So that went in. Here's all the pieces of silver or china that you guys wanted. Oh my gosh, I found your teddy bear. And I put it at the top. And she called me, and she was in tears that day, and she said, I was having such a bad day, and I opened that box and my bear was there. And it was like having Mom hug me, right? The same thing that Deb just did. Like, yeah. So there have been a lot of really sweet moments and connectedness moments that I've been really careful to allow. Instead of being all the busy all the time, it got to allow the other stuff as well. And then as I was getting to the very end of everything this week, the only things really left are a couple pieces of furniture for my comfort because I'm living in the house until it changes hands because we don't want an empty house. But everything else is out. I had this urgent need to get stuff out. Like the boxes just had to go. The trash had to go. I just needed to get it done because at that point I had reached the end of my capacity to do anymore. Then I needed to feel finished. So it's just a whole lot of every emotion you can have, but I've made sure to allow myself to also laugh and to enjoy the funny pictures. We found some family scandals. We'd heard about them before. They were mostly financial fights from the 1950s, from 2 generations back.
Wow.
But somebody had kept the papers. And I finally decided, you know what? We don't need the paper. Nobody needs to carry this to another generation. This is just toxic, and it went out. So there was that stuff. I'm fortunate. I haven't had one of those where you find out that, someone had a second family somewhere. We had none of that scandal. I've seen a lot of those. We didn't have any of that, but there's just been a whole lot of sorting and rediscovering some things about my grandparents and great grandparents that I didn't know through the correspondence that I found.
Right.
And that's been really precious to me. And if there was any ugliness, somebody else tossed it ahead of time. So I'm glad for that. I'm glad to have a sanitized version of things. I appreciate that. But yeah, I sat and cried when I finished. When I sent the last boxes out by UPS. I had a cry in the parking lot.
Yep.
And when I signed all the documents to open escrow on the house yesterday, and the real estate agent is young and gung-ho, and it's not somebody I know, it's somebody who knows the friend who's buying the house. And he sent out this group email to everybody involved in this transaction, escrow and this and that, all the things that it takes. It
Right.
takes a lot to sell a house. I'm so excited. And everyone's like, yay, yay. Aren't you excited? I'm like, no.
No.
No, I'm relieved, but no, I'm not excited. This is not an excitement moment. And I realize all of you are excited that there's a real estate transaction going on, but you're asking me for copies of a death certificate. That means someone died.
Right.
And so, reminder to those who do real estate, mind the words, because they can hurt. So, and it wasn't intentional, and I didn't take it, and I didn't say anything to them. But yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Did
I
Jill,
answer your question?
That answered both of them. I hope it gives comfort to our listening audience, because thanks Douglas, or Doug, because you expressed how you felt, and the comfort I hope people feel is they're not alone in their feelings.
Right.
This
is normal.
This is normal. And sometimes one sibling feels it more than the others. My mom died so young when her grandkids, my brother's children, were little, that I felt like I had to be the grandma and the aunt.
Right.
It was a real weird feeling. And I know someone would say, why would you think that? Because you think a lot of things, you feel a lot of things when you realize you are the matriarch of the family now.
Exactly.
And so I don't know how far you went with your thinking. Of course, I've had many more years than you processing this. So I realized, our Aunt Jackie, my dad's sister, was the oldest sister. And all of a sudden, over the last couple of years, I've been feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm like Aunt Jackie.
You are.
It's a
You've
weird
got the role now.
I'm not only, so it's, yes. And
it's multiple layers of loss, Deb.
It is.
It's like we had a grandchild born that my mom was looking forward to, who appeared after mom's death.
And
right? It's that extra, somebody's not there to do that anymore. So
right.
Someone's got to fill it in.
It's like the universe has this natural fill-in. And there was something else you said about generational trauma and not putting it, and we haven't talked very much about that here.
No, we haven't.
And that would be a great topic. But how do you say the buck stops here, or the trauma stops here? And how do you, and I'm throwing this out, I'm not asking you, but these are things to consider, such as in my mom's side of the family, her brother and her did not get along. I don't know why. It was never talked about. We just never saw her brother, that uncle, cut off. And he came back into her life when somebody knocked on the door and said, "Are you so and so? Your brother named you power of attorney." who knew?
Right.
And so then that whole thing was discussed again. And my mother, because she had a certain relationship with her brother and behaved a certain way, she's very shocked at how much good friends my brother and I were. And then somewhere along the way, after mom died, we got out of sorts with each other. But we wanted to make sure that we didn't fall into what happened. So we probably talked about it ad nauseum, came to like, do we want to be right or do we want to be happy?
I love that statement. My
Yes,
wife uses it all the time.
that's right. And so we would rather be together than not together. And I could accept his ignorance on certain
Hmm.
things, and he could accept my stubbornness on
Right.
certain things. And then after we worked it out, then I saw more, which led him to his conclusion. And he actually saw more about my side down the road.
Right.
So you have to admit, first of all, that there's a generational trauma.
Hmm.
Um, you see it in your
I see
client.
it in my work, and I've seen it in the family.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And
And
in
there's people
fact,
who, go ahead.
yeah, in fact, when my mom was dying, I met with my two sisters outside and said, "Okay, this is it. We have to get along from here on out because we're not going to have her in between us. We have to be the unit now." And
Uh-huh.
we knew that we had aunts, great aunts in Michigan, Muskegon,
Hmm.
where the family settled from Sweden,
Yeah,
who lived next door to each other and didn't speak for more than 25 years.
that's right.
Did not speak. And we knew that there'd been this other trauma that we heard about on the day of my grandfather's funeral that was fine. It was always financial because money was tight for lots of family members.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there was lots of reason for resentment.
Mm-hmm.
And it's absolutely unnecessary, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And so we made that decision.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was clearing out and going through every blessed piece of paper, because with dementia, things don't go where things should go, you know? And so we found a letter that my dad had written to us, to the three of us, after his second stroke when he was still in his 50s. And he would have been 92 this year. And he said, "I just want you three to know how much we loved you and that um, no matter what you thought of us as parents, we always loved you. And you three need to get along because you're going to have only each other when the time comes." His own sister had already died at that point. So he was an only child with no parents.
Mm-hmm.
And he was in his 50s at the time. So he was very clear. These are your instructions. You three get along. You three support each other. You three let the stuff go.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, he died 18 years ago. And that
Mm-hmm.
letter just showed up. So I think it's really important to make those decisions, to let the trauma that's unnecessary,
Mm-hmm.
to leave it behind
Yeah. To acknowledge that it happened
and
and
let
leave
it
it.
be.
I love the families that like, no, there's nothing that happened with our family, and everybody else knows it.
Everybody knows it, and it's
You
had an
know?
impact,
And so
right?
and so you carry on that. I just want to say you carry on that generational trauma when you
Yeah,
cannot admit that there's malarkey going on in the family.
yeah, absolutely. We discovered more trauma. We didn't know how my great grandfather died. We knew it was an industrial accident. We didn't know
Right,
how horrific an industrial accident.
right.
We
I
didn't know that's why
explain
there
that.
was a schism between Muskegon and Florida. all of that, now that it's out, can be let go.
Yes. Yes.
Understood and let go so that we can take this next generation into doing grief in a whole different way and a lot
Right.
more openly.
That's right.
And to cry when we need to cry and laugh when we need to laugh and give
Yes.
ourselves the time when we need to.
Yeah. Well, that's beautiful, Jill. It's so true. Wow. Well, we uncovered a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure nobody really wanted to hear all of Jill's story, but I'm glad we got to talk about some of it. Steven
I'm
says,
glad
make sure
we
you have
did.
at least 10 copies of the death certificate. Absolutely.
Yes, that's
And
what I
they're expensive.
everybody.
Prepare.
That's what I tell everybody. So,
Hmm.
yeah, it that's what you need. And not in pencil. Oh, he wrote that earlier. Yeah. Yeah.
Get it all done.
Get it all done. All right. Well, I will be broadcasting with you next week from someplace else. I'm taking care of a friend, making sure she gets through her surgery and everything.
I hope the
And
funerals go well this weekend, Deb.
yeah, it's cold. I'm hoping it doesn't snow when we're at the cemetery. For those that are officiants or, whatever, it's like you do two different services. So, yep.
One more family story that we
Yes.
found out about. I had uncles who were funeral directors in Michigan, and they died within days of each other in accidents. And
Uh-huh.
they both wanted, they were funeral directors. They should have known better. You're not supposed to bury people in the middle of high snow. There were pictures of these canisters of steaming coal, and the snow was probably conservatively 5 feet high around it.
Oh,
And some poor schlubs had to excavate not one, but two graves and then spend all night melting all of the frozen ground because they were not going to be put in cold storage till spring. Thank you very much. They were the funeral directors. Oh my goodness.
wow.
The poor
Wow.
officiant there. Yeah, you couldn't even see the church steps for all the snow.
No, no. Well, I am grateful I don't have to do that. I have a warm coat. Someone sent me a warm scarf for the holidays, and it's all going on, including maybe some earmuffs. So,
I think that's awesome. All right, everybody, have a wonderful week. We will be back next week and we'll have a little more humor and a lot more grace. And we're each going to be in different places.
again,
Bye, everybody.
bye.